Okay, well, let's get going. So I'm Steve Jensen, and I'm happy to be here. I did this kind of similar presentation 3 years ago and 4 years ago because I know Dave, and I was a little bit familiar with Regional and the Fisher Group, and because I do public relations. That's my world. So we're going to talk about how to generate buzz with social media and PR and do it inexpensively. And I want to ask first, who has, I mean, we're not going to do a poll, we're not going to put our heads down, but like, I want to hear if you feel, okay, I'm doing some and I'm decent, or I'm doing some but I don't know much what I'm doing, or I don't know anything about social media and public relations. Or maybe you're like way up there, you're like, I'm an expert, I should be teaching this. So I'm pretty good, not very good, or so it's 3, 2, and 1. You don't know anything. So if you can be vulnerable and just kind of raise your hand, who thinks that they're a 3? They may have a 3. Okay, who thinks they're a 2? No. Who like doesn't know?
You have a level 0?
Level 1. Okay.
Bad at it.
We have one qualification to be in this room, and that's to tell us your name. So.
My name's Rebecca.
Rebecca. Okay. You got Rebecca as well. So here's what I want to say first. I want to talk about something that I know very little about, and that's cars.
Brake calipers.
Yeah. See, who said that?
Those are brake pads.
Yeah, those are pads.
I was like, the rotor underneath it's round, right?
Right, she saw it. It's right there. That's the caliper.
That sounds
So
right.
up until COVID, which was a really good thing for me in some things, I was just like, I don't want to touch that. I'd rather just pay the money like most people. And then I thought, I have a little bit of time, and I need to get out of my comfort zone. I mostly want to save money because I just don't want to pay. And we've got teenagers. We have 5 kids, and they're in the teenager stage, and that means multiple cars. And they're junky cars for the most part, but they still need brakes, and the brakes cost a lot to replace. So I've got to learn how to do it. So I tried to do something out of my comfort zone. Mostly what put me over the edge was I just can't think to spend $300 on that car and then on this car. I can save 100, 150 maybe, times 2, times 3, 4, that multiplies. That was my motivation. And that's kind of how it is maybe with some of you being here. When we change our behavior, when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing. Consequences give us the pain that motivates us to change. And I do feel that way, and it's so hard, for me at least, to do something out of my comfort zone. As we get older, it's really hard to do something that we think, other people do that, that's not me. But something that I have learned over the years seems way scarier than it actually is what we're talking about here. So, public relations. Does anyone want to give a guess? Well, it's not like a right or wrong answer, but who's be willing to say kind of how would you define public relations?
How your company interacts with the general public.
That's very good. Yeah, and that's what the name is, related to the public. Anybody have another? That's very good. There's a definition that seems a little bit academic, but this is the Public Relations Society of America, or PRSA, says that PR is a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics. So basically what Rebecca said. So very good. If I had candy bars, I'd throw them. And for a small sign business, or and you can tell me a little bit more about your businesses because we don't have too many people here, so we can get somewhat personal. And I can stay after a little bit, by the way, as well. We'll go from 2:30 to 3:15, but I can stay until 3:30. This can help differentiate you in a crowded market, and there's a lot of side benefits. And if you think, I know very little, or I know nothing, or like Micah says, I'm 0, well, you'll probably just realize listening, even if you don't say anything here, okay, that makes sense. Okay, I already know that. Okay, I've seen that, or I've heard of that. I maybe not as low on skills, I think. But it's just a matter of doing something about it. And why? Why would you want to actually engage a little bit in PR or social media for your business? So here's 7 reasons why. And these are not just my own, but I've done a little research also to see what other people are saying, and from my experience, these hold true. And when I say a PR strategy, then I'm also kind of talking about social media, right? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, we'll even mention TikTok a little bit at the end, but anything that you're doing to get that beneficial relationship using a third party, using a medium to try to help your business outside of the traditional marketing where you're spending money. So you do have to spend money if you want to get someone to help you do PR, to pay them. But if you're doing it yourself, that's the shoestring budget. You're like, I can put in a little bit. Like, there's so many tools online. There's so many things I can do without spending money for digital ads or spending money for other marketing things. That's what we're talking about here. Okay, credibility. So, hang on one second. I'm going to pull something up here. My notes section has some things here. I wanted to pull them, so give me 1 second. And while I'm just pulling this up, tell me your names. Repeat your names.
Laurie.
Laurie and
Brian.
Brian. Okay. So we got Laurie and Brian, and one other person snuck in. Sat by Rebecca. Selena. Okay, great. Everyone's like, man, I haven't had to tell my name. I want to be incognito. It just helps me, so I appreciate that. Okay. So why do you think that being credible would be important? What's at stake in your business, even if you're a one-person shop? By the way, does anyone here have 10 employees or more? You do, because you have multiple locations. in West Valley.
Multiple locations and multiple businesses.
Why would you want to be credible? How does that help your customers? What's the...
Feel safe working with you.
Trust.
Yep.
Kind of that.
I have my notes to talk about, but I have this up and I didn't bring it in. So we're just going to go on. How do you think if you're gonna have a message that you're gonna give to a third party, what's the value of being able to control it? Sometimes there's things that are out of your control, but why is it nice to control a message that you're trying to relay about your company?
Keep it consistent.
Yeah. The word of mouth and what other people say, it's going to get you you're not going to be able to, if you want to differentiate yourselves, you need to be able to have a message that's consistent and that you can control, and it's credible. What about crisis management? For a small company, you're trying to get people to notice you, but what could go wrong? What's kind of a crisis that could happen to your business?
You work with the wrong partner and now your name's associated with them.
Yep. That, or fraud, or a natural disaster happens and you've got to get the word out. You're like, how do I tell people that it had nothing to do with this, but it's affecting my business? We've got to get the word out through social media, through a third party, through PR. What about exposure? You're like, man, if just people knew about this, there's no way for me to get the word out. I don't have the money to advertise. I'd like to do it the traditional way of advertising, but I just can't. So how can I get some exposure to just have people know about me? Staying power. If you're planning to be around for a while, and you're like, that's a way that I can get something online. If you have an article about you, if you have something about you online, a third party, that has staying power. And that actually, when people do those search terms, that's part of why you want to get articles written about you, blog posts about you, social media about you, because it'll have staying power over time, which goes along with the search engine optimization benefits. It's a big word, but whenever you go on Google, you search something, Some people are going to be paying, and you see those ads at the top, and some people are, and their companies are coming up to the first page or at the top of the list because they've done certain things to optimize those terms. So you're saying 2 or 3 words, that's like, if I could describe my differentiators of 3 words, this is what it is. Like, I better put those words in whatever I'm writing so that over time, that those words are going to generate in the search engines. And then the value, obviously, for your business. So there's, I think, a lot of common sense in the 7 reasons why your small business can benefit from social media and PR, but it's more the tools that you're here for to talk about, so we'll go into this. Build brand awareness. So first of all, just a little poll. Who has already used or is currently using Facebook for your business? Okay. And then who's using Instagram, which is owned by Facebook? Okay, Facebook and Instagram. Anybody using LinkedIn? Okay. Twitter? Anything else? YouTube? TikTok, you're using TikTok. That's awesome. Okay, that's great.
A little bit.
Yeah,
Not enough.
yeah. And who feels like I've made some progress, like I had 5 followers and now I have 10, or whatever it is? Is there any kind of, a little bit, Rebecca?
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit.
when we moved it from, we were paying a third-party company, Site Altitude, to handle our social media, and then we moved it in-house and actually saw like a huge improvement.
Interesting.
In like just the people we were following, the interactions we were getting, it was worth it to bring it in-house for us instead of.
What did you attribute it to?
I think we're just able to really, we have a weird niche market, because we're actually an education technology company, and we just produce labels and do social media for them, so
Yeah.
we already have a pretty good, like, we kind of dominate our industry, so it really is just finding the right group of people to tap into, like teachers, superintendents. So once we like stopped following accounts that had nothing to do with education, surprisingly, we saw some improvement in just followers and interactions.
That's a great testimonial of doing it yourself, which is kind of what we're here talking about, because you can pay somebody else, and for the most part, you're going to get better results, hopefully, than if you didn't pay. But in your case, you're like, yeah, we're actually doing better. We know our stuff better. That's really cool. Humanizing your brand. Okay, think about when you read something, when you see something, and you're like, oh man, this is like, they're talking to everybody and nobody at the same time. It's an advertisement. We see them all day long and everything. But if you humanize it, you think, you know what, I've got a customer who's really benefited from what we do. Like, why can't I get their voice in there? Why can't I talk to the person that I'm trying to reach a little bit more personally than I would just by like, we do this, we have it at this altitude, we have it, you know, these are the widgets that we have and all that, whatever it is, that's not going to sell as much as getting personal and having some emotion in what you're trying to share. In this case, your social media. So social media is really good with the human brand because you can have a picture on Instagram which lends itself to photos, and instead of just a thing, you have a person in there, and most of your picture is the person's head or whatever, and then behind, like, you know, I showed those brake pads, but like, it would be a lot more interesting if there was a person showing their car, right? So just humanizing what you're doing, that's a big part of how social media can be great. Establishing your brand as a thought leader. Kind of goes without saying maybe, but as time, whose business has been around for more than 5 years? Okay, so everyone else is less than 5 years. If you think about 10 years from now or 20 years from now, like if you've ever, even if you're not trying to sell always, if you've been in a news article and you're commenting on something in the science supply industry or whatever it is, and you're just a name that's associated with that article, then when people see that, they'll be like, oh, that's an expert. Like they're talking about the industry. It doesn't matter that they're not trying to sell you. So being a thought leader or a trend leader or an industry expert is something that you can really do through social media. And here's a site here. By the way, if anyone is curious at the end, it'll be really easy for me to share these slides. Couple fun facts. And you guys mentioned, most of you mentioned Facebook that you're using. So when you're posting on Facebook, this is just one opinion, but Tuesday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., so those 4 hours, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, apparently the best times to post on Facebook. Okay? Several of you mentioned you have Instagram, right? 59% of adults in the US are using Instagram every day. So well more than half of all adults are on Instagram. Okay? 90% of people on Instagram follow at least one business. So that means well over half are following many businesses. So if you think, yeah, people still follow businesses on Instagram, just about everybody does. They follow at least one business. And then if you think, how much should I post? Is one that's a week enough? 2 or 3 times a week maybe? So this isn't taking into consideration how big the business is, but just in general, business accounts post an average of 1.6 times a day. Okay? So you're like, man, maybe I could post a little bit more. We don't have a representative from regional or Fisher in here, but I'm curious because I noticed in the last 3 years, they've posted a lot more. 3 years ago, their total amount of Instagram posts was like a couple hundred or so, and now it's like well over 1,000. So they've been adding to that. And I'd be curious to know if they've seen any results from that. So those are some fun facts. Okay, let's get into some tips. I'm just going to show you these all at once, and then we'll go back. Visualize, optimize, humanize headlines. Okay? Well, let's think about it. We'll start with visualize. So, go back to... Okay, so someone mentioned keeping it consistent and the importance of consistency. If you show, you have like, well, I like these different logos, or I'm going to show this look of my product or what we do, and I'm going to show this look. The consistency can, think about a brand. Think about Coca-Cola. You might see it in the red, or you might see it in the white. You might see just Coke or Coca-Cola. But that consistency is always there. You see anything, just the C, you know it's Coke. Think about that with your brand, and whatever you're showing on social, think, I need to show that consistency. Maybe my logo is always going to be in there, or maybe if I'm showing a person, then I'm going to show people that are, wearing something, or whatever it is. But that consistency is important. Part of visualizing is keeping it simple and not complicating things. You know so much about what you do and your services, your products. You know all of it, but people don't want to see that in 3 seconds or less when they're flipping through. They want to see an image, they want to see maybe a sentence, but maybe just a few words is all. So discipline yourselves to keep things simple, and you'll get more engagement that way. I've learned that the hard way in communicating with journalists in my career. It's counterintuitive when you think, I'm going to give them more information, and therefore they're more likely to think that this is a great story idea, when actually much less gets their interest more. So keeping it simple. Keeping it accurate. It goes without saying. You don't want to be in any way putting yourself in a place that you're fabricating, that you're exaggerating so much. People will see through that over time. So keeping things accurate, and then keeping it professional. You're like, okay, this is really funny. I'm going to put this on there. I think it's funny, therefore people like me, they're funny. You can get in trouble when you stop being professional. You can be, you want to be humorous, you want to be fun, but just not crossing that line. So consistent, simple, accurate, professional. How to visualize. Any comments on that? Anybody with an experience of how you kind of visualized things for your brand when you posted? If anything pops up, feel free. And Rebecca, you can continue to, don't feel like we've got a tight-knit group here. Okay, optimize. So this is where we talked about how to make sure that it stays online and that you get more juice. Google juice is kind of a term we use. Who is your audience? Are you reaching them? Can you measure it? Doing tests, consider sponsored posts. So we won't go into as much detail here. But your audience, maybe thinking about your prospective customers, maybe your current customers too. You're like, you know what, I'm not trying to sell so much when I post on Instagram. I just want to keep my current customers going. Maybe that's the whole reason to do it. Maybe it's for employees. You're like, you know what, this is a channel that we're going to have because we want them to know when the barbecue is. We want them to know that we've got stuff going on. So if you think about who your audience is, if you think about it's everybody, it's going to be hard to know what to post. But if you're like, that's my audience, then you can more easily cater the content to them. Are you reaching them? It doesn't do a whole lot of good unless you know what they're on. You decided, for whatever reason, to choose Instagram. Now, a few said LinkedIn, one Twitter, and a couple TikTok. But do you know that that's what they're on? You know, maybe poll them. Do a simple survey. There's SurveyMonkey and some of these things. Or ask someone that knows, how can I poll my customers? When you talk to them, hey, got a couple questions for you. Are you on TikTok? Are you on LinkedIn, Facebook? Okay, do you ever go there for work, or is it just after hours? You know, asking your customers these kinds of things. This is a good excuse. You're coming out of Elevate, you've got all these ideas. I would throw that in there if you're thinking about doing social media, to just simply ask your customers where they get their information, and maybe it's a multiple choice. Can you measure it? And that's what's nice about social media. It's so easy. PR is a little bit more difficult, sometimes with articles, to know where it's gone. But you can see the number of people that liked it. You can see the number of people that have shared it. And LinkedIn especially is really powerful. I don't know so much about for your specific business, but I've kind of learned in my career that LinkedIn kind of gets you the best bang for the buck as far as the money that you put in, and then followers and engagement. There's just a lot of people that are going on for work. Facebook, maybe in this industry, is more important, and I'd love to hear reasons, but measuring on any of the social media platforms is so much easier. You know, we live in a world that everyone kind of forgot what it was like to not have social media, but before it, we couldn't measure it very easy. So make sure you're setting benchmarks. You can just write it down. I used to do that. I would say, okay, it's June 23rd, 2022. Right now, I have 65 followers on Instagram. Keep a list of that. And then next year, oh wow, now I have 85. What did I do? And sure enough, in 5 years, it'll be like, look at that, I've tripled it, I've quadrupled it. It was going slow, then it went faster. So it's just simple measuring. And there's a lot of automated tools for this, but this is kind of at the base level of what you can do simply. And then, yeah, doing tests, which performed better. I was posting early in the morning, and I wasn't getting much, and then suddenly I started posting late at night. And those late at night ones seem to be getting more engagement, more people are liking them. So that seems like one of the things that would be easy to do, is to test it that way. And then consider sponsoring posts. You can target a more narrow audience on certain channels. Who has experience with doing sponsored posts, with paying for Facebook ads? You have any?
Most of the ones our company lets us spend money on is for like career fairs, so letting people know that we have that. So we're able to go in and kind of geo-target, target. They give some pretty decent options. Normally we just try to get people who put work for us in the area. But.
Yeah. Dave, put you on the spot here a little bit. With Regional and with Fisher, have you guys, do you know if you put money toward sponsoring posts that you've done on Facebook or Instagram or anything, like ever put money toward those? It doesn't
we have done a little bit.
Do you see that okay, you see some results, or is it kind of just like, well, I trust that it might be getting us somewhere, I don't really know?
You know what, it depends on the company. Like for example, with craft and hobby kind of stuff, we've had more success than we have with just traditional signs or screen printing or labels or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, and that's good to know. You found that over time, and then once you do, then if you're like, okay, what can we do up there? We know it's not going to work over here. It's worked for this, and you can be a little bit more specific. That's really good. So humanizing. We talked about this a little bit, but people need to trust you, and They need to know you're caring about them if you're talking to your customers or if you're talking to your employees. Sometimes introduce them to people to making it happen and show how your product's being used. You can say, this is Rebecca. Maybe it's, meet Rebecca. This is what she likes to do after hours. This is what she does. She's trying to make, what's your company?
For audio enhancement.
Audio enhancement. So, audio enhancement doesn't have to be her entire life. She's got a life outside of work. And sometimes just humanizing by showing people doing things that are not necessarily work-related, that it's Rebecca, and she's associated with it, that they're like, oh, I could deal with her. Like, she's cool. She's a normal person. Maybe they have the same interests. So think about things that would be not necessarily work-related. Social media, especially Instagram, is great for that. TikTok as well. Headlines. Okay, the only thing most people read. You're scrolling through, you're on Instagram, or you're on Facebook, and you see there's words there, but you usually probably don't read them because you're just going through, right? So it's the headline that's most important. So here's some pointers. Get to the point. Don't have like a 15-word headline as much as a 5-word or maybe 8-word. And it's so, again, when we're doing it ourselves, we're probably not thinking about what we see, but think about what you see. Go to some examples. Just go on Instagram and see what people do. Now, Instagram's maybe not the best example because you don't have a headline in Instagram. But in LinkedIn or in other places, the headline's important. An article on your blog post. Make a bold statement. Okay, I was going to show a couple of examples. Like, here's why nobody is reading your sign. Okay, I'm curious. Something that's like going to grab their attention. And again, this is a good brainstorming thing. Get a couple people, your colleagues together and say, let's put some ideas down. And then you could run them by someone who does marketing or something and say, which one of these 5 headlines do you think would be better? Or which one would grab their attention? A myth buster. So that would be like, I don't even have an example here, but like, it's not, have you heard that, I can't think of an example, but you heard that this is true in sublimation or whatever? Actually, no, it's not. And here's why. So debunking something sometimes can get people's attention more. And then asking questions. How do colors change the effectiveness of a sign? Using who, what, when, where, why, how. People get more engaged when you're bringing them to think about something and what's next, as opposed to just, we have something new product. They're just probably going to click through that more often than not. And then creating a sense of urgency or mystery. Why 2023, and you say this later in the year, might be the best bet to do this. Why post-pandemic, or why with the recession coming, this. So be thinking about like, oh, I've got to do this now because this is what's going to happen in our industry. This is what I need to worry about. So you're trying to get that. Those are kind of common sales things too. Get to the point. 5 industry trends to watch for in 2022. How to improve your vehicle wrapping. Mistakes you don't realize you're making. Bold. Is the sign industry dying? How can you prepare? Spot common vinyl scams with these 5 tips. 5 things your vendor won't tell you. Mythbusters. Are you making this common mistake? 10 ways to do it better and get results. Common misperceptions. 5 common strategies. Asking a question. Engage them. And do a quick search. If you just search social media post ideas, the first thing that comes up might be something that you just look at 1 or 2 of those things and you're like, oh, that's a good idea. I just barely searched it. There's so many ideas out there, and sometimes people are just afraid to look. But there's plenty. Okay, so quick poll. Who has? Well, we talked about it a little bit before, but when you go look for things in the industry, have you let's just do this. Raise your hand if you've ever used YouTube at all to go look for something in the industry. Okay? Have you ever gone to Twitter to look for something in the industry? Instagram. Probably more because more people are using it, like you said at first. LinkedIn. Okay, not as much. And Facebook. Yep, more. Okay, let's talk about TikTok for a second. I want to hear, because TikTok, as I was just reading, it's such a low barrier to entry. It's so easy to make videos, and it's free. So there's some creative things you can do. So Rebecca or anybody else that has watched some TikToks in the industry or who has done something?
So our industry is definitely a little bit different than like the creative industry, because ours really is for teachers, we're like a marketing team for a tech company, but
Yeah.
we found a lot of teachers were actually going on and using the microphones that we produce and making short little TikToks that they're like, Reese's Puff, and then the whole class is like, eat 'em up, and has the attention of the teacher. And so we really wanted to start mainly sharing these things so that other teachers who may not be following that teacher can see like, hey, we spied our microphone in here, kind of calling to attention. And then once we started resharing stuff, we convinced owners that we should put some videos out and show some of our products. And so just kind of slowly creeping in the game. We've only posted 2 videos so far, so nothing like major, but we just noticed that a lot of our target market was using TikTok and our equipment.
Interesting.
And so we felt that we had to force into the TikTok.
Okay, now explain, because some people may just have heard of TikTok but never used it. We won't ask, but like just tell someone briefly how TikTok works.
I don't even know if I fully know how it works, but I think you can make short little quick videos.
How long does it have to be?
20 seconds.
10 seconds.
And then people can kind
And
of...
it loops.
It
So you
loops
watch
in.
it and it just keeps looping. So if it's creative, interesting, someone might watch it over and over.
Yep.
They can be anywhere from like 10, 20 seconds to like 3 minutes long.
Okay, good. Yeah, personally, I'm not on it. My kids are. But not me. I spend way too much time on teenagers. Yeah. So something to think about. Maybe if you're old enough, you have kids, or you've got someone else that you're like, hey, you're below the age of 25, make a TikTok for me, or show me a couple TikToks and maybe how I can do it. Yeah, and it can be fun. And if nothing else, the novelty of it, and to show someone that, wow, this guy's kind of, and this woman's kind of like, at the times, they're using social media. Maybe it's a big enough deal just to get an Instagram page. But TikTok could be a fun thing to do. So I'm going to put the attention on Dave a little bit more here. So here is what I'm just going to show. This is not pre-planned. It's more just kind of showing. As of last night, here's what the Facebook page looked like. And one thing that's cool that I noticed right off is that banner. It's got the logo, which is consistent. You see the logo by the name, Regional Supply. And then you see some of the history. You know, you can quickly see some black and white and going to color, left to right. Regional Supply, Hispanics Group Company, 1946. So I think there's a couple little tips there. They're showing right off the consistency, their logo, color scheme. It doesn't take long to see, oh, they've been around a long time. It just has to show that 1946. And then they're showing what's important. They've been around. They've got the history. They have nice facilities. And just a short statement there, serving the sign and graphics industry since 1946. And I looked at it compared to what it looked like 3 years ago. I'm like, wow, I should have done it before and after, but it's improved. They're staying up with the times, which is nice. LinkedIn. So as people are going to LinkedIn to look at potential employers, I go there just every day, not even necessarily for work, but just anytime I want to learn about somebody that I meet. It's like rare that someone that's 30 and above is not on LinkedIn. And maybe this industry isn't so much into it. I'm in the tech industry, and just about everybody's in LinkedIn, but you can learn so much. And so why not have a nice page? Because someone that's worked for regional is going to have, when they put regional on there, it's going to pop up with a regional link, and so they can link right to that. And so you want your company page to look good. So compared to what we just looked at Facebook, which was a little bigger and a little more colorful, LinkedIn's a little bit more professional, so you see a little bit more words. That makes sense. You can go right to the website, following them, and I've connected with a couple people that work there, and it shows 49 employees, which doesn't necessarily mean there's only 49 employees, but it's automating, showing 49 people on LinkedIn, which Len, was it Lenny? What was it again? Lelina, yeah. Kind of seem to agree with that as well. Instagram, okay, so Instagram's about the images more. And I'm not showing it live here, so you can't see. If I scroll down, you can see some more people. Lends itself well, but remember, showing, humanizing your brand. Everyone wants to see people. It's why we go to Instagram, because we want to see what people are doing. We want to see faces. And for your business, you can often show a face, you can show people while you're showing products. We didn't talk about Instagram Live. Has anyone used Instagram Live? Sometimes that can lead, people go on, they're flipping through just these quick videos in Instagram Live, and then that can make them click on it, and then they'll end up going into the post and reading. Because they're not really reading live, they're just seeing someone. You know, here at Elevate, maybe you took some videos or something, or you're on in your own place. Walk around, say, hey, this is what we got going here. It's so much more interesting to watch someone walking around showing than just to have a picture or even just video something sitting there.
We actually did a few live videos yesterday and today.
Did you? Okay, that's awesome.
Those pictures are very new because those are from yesterday.
Yeah, you see? Yeah, this is last night at 11:55 p.m. And I mentioned this at the beginning, a couple of you guys weren't here. I noticed 3 years ago the Instagram followers, or the posts were like 200 3 years ago or something like that. And I don't know how often you guys were posting, but now it's...
Now it's 3-ish times a week, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, which is great. And as you get more posts, then you get more followers. I think the followers were less than half that 3 years ago.
Probably.
So that's pretty cool. And YouTube. And YouTube is, it's like, you go on YouTube, you do a search for something you're looking for, like the first thing that I showed with my brake pads, you can find anything. So do consider, if you're going to put a video on there, those words that you put with it, because those will help optimize, remember? And if you want to put money toward it, it's even easier. But just if you put a video on YouTube, don't just put it up there without any words, because those words over time. I did something for a guy that I know about 7 years ago. He built these shelters on wheels for homeless people. This guy was like 75 years old, and he's retired, but he knew how to build things, and he had a real soft spot in his heart for homeless people. So he built these shelters on wheels, and I thought, this is a really cool thing. And so we just made a little slideshow with just like light music. It wasn't anything great. The guy helped me make that. We put that slideshow on YouTube, and I should pull it up now, but last time I saw it, it had like 250,000 views and a couple thousand comments, just built over time. And when you're posting something, you're not thinking about 7 years from now, but that shelf life can stay, and then you can do stuff with that over time. So think about the long term. Don't just think about today, social media, what can I do today, but think about, I want to make sales, but I also want to build my brand. You can do it cheaply. You can get started right away without spending much time and money by doing some of the things we talked about. And we didn't talk as much about public relations, but that's also, it's somewhat intuitive. If you think, I've read an article in the newspaper, you know, people don't get the hard copy anymore, but I read an online article. How could I go about getting my name in that? Well, maybe the person that wrote that might be interested in hearing about you, and so you want to contact that person. So it's kind of, it kind of isn't as hard as you might think. There's some tactics you can use. We're not going to go into them here, but we can talk after about how and when and in what way to contact someone who wrote an article so that they might be interested in your company too, and that can be for other conversations. Any questions about PR, about social media, and how to kind of generate some buzz? Well, it sounds like everybody has had a pretty good 2 days. If you didn't, then you wouldn't still be here. You wouldn't think to be here. But I'll stick around and happy to show some things or answer questions. So thank you everyone for coming.